The strange thing about losing someone is realizing how much they were holding together only after they are no longer there. For most of his life, Michael Turner believed his family worked the way families naturally worked. Mornings somehow started on time, dinners appeared on the table, birthdays were remembered, and the quiet rhythm of everyday life seemed to run as smoothly as a well-oiled machine. He never questioned it, because when something works perfectly, people rarely stop to ask why. Michael lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, Colorado, where the houses had wide front lawns, pickup trucks sat in driveways, and neighbors waved politely when they passed each other on evening walks. Life felt steady there, predictable in the way small-town American life often is. Michael worked long hours managing a hardware store 15 minutes from home. His days were filled with inventory numbers, customer questions, and the steady routine of opening the store at 8 every morning. By the time he drove home each evening, he was usually tired, television before bed. Waiting at home was Laura Turner, his wife of nearly 20 years, a woman who moved through life so quietly that Michael had somehow forgotten to notice how much she did. Laura had a way of keeping things running without drawing attention to herself. When Michael woke up, each morning the coffee was already brewing and the kitchen smelled faintly of toast. His work shirt was always clean and folded over the back of a chair. The calendar on the refrigerator was neatly filled with reminders written in careful handwriting, dentist appointments, birthdays for relatives, school events for their teenage son Jake. Michael assumed that was simply how organized people lived. He never considered the hours Laura spent making sure every small detail stayed in place. Laura also worked part-time at the town library 3 afternoons a week, a quiet building with tall windows and rows of bookshelves that smelled faintly of paper and polished wood. She enjoyed helping children find books and recommending novels to elderly visitors who spent their afternoon. But even there, Laura kept the same quiet presence she had at home. She rarely talked about herself. She simply helped where she was needed. Over the years, Michael grew used to this invisible support, the way people grow used to electricity or running water, essential things that fade into the background of daily life. If a family dinner with relatives needed planning, Laura handled it. If someone in the neighborhood was sick, she baked a casserole and left it on their porch. If Jake forgot about a school project, Laura gently reminded him and helped him finish it before the deadline. Michael appreciated these things in a vague way, but he never stopped long enough to truly see the effort behind them. He believed life simply unfolded that way. On weekends, he watched football games in the living room while Laura organized the house, or called family members across the country just to make sure they were doing well. She remembered every birthday, every anniversary, every small moment that made people feel connected. And somehow, through all those years, Michael never realized quietly built it piece by piece every single day. Then one autumn morning something changed. The air outside had that crisp Colorado chill that arrives just before the first snow of the season. Michael woke up expecting the familiar sound of the coffee machine and the gentle clatter of dishes in the kitchen. But the house was silent. At first he assumed Laura had stepped out early for groceries or a walk around the block. He shuffled into the kitchen and noticed the coffee maker was empty. The calendar on the refrigerator looked untouched. The morning routine that had existed for 2 decades had simply paused. Laura had left early that morning to spend several weeks visiting her sister in Oregon, something she had talked about for months, but something Michael had only half listened to while thinking about work schedules and store deliveries. She had finally decided it was time to take a break from the constant rhythm of responsibilities that filled her days. She packed a small suitcase and left a short note on the kitchen counter wishing everyone a good morning and reminding Jake to lock the back door before school. Handwriting that filled the family calendar. Michael read it quickly and shrugged. A few weeks apart didn't seem like a big deal. But as the days passed, he began to notice small cracks appearing in the routine he once took for granted. The first sign came when he realized he had forgotten Jake's school meeting with a guidance counselor. Laura normally kept track of those things. Then he discovered the stack of unpaid bills tucked in a drawer that he had never needed to check before. The refrigerator held random groceries, but no plan for meals. Laundry piled up faster than he expected. Even family group chats grew quiet because Laura had always been the one sending messages and checking in on relatives. None of these problems were dramatic, but together they created a strange sense that something important was missing from the structure of everyday life. Michael found himself thinking about Laura more often as the days went by. He remembered the way she woke up before sunrise to make sure Jake had breakfast before school. He remembered the countless times she gently reminded him. He remembered how she seemed to sense tension in the house before anyone else noticed, and somehow managed to calm it with a few thoughtful words. At the time, those moments had felt ordinary. Now they felt extraordinary. One evening, Michael stood in the kitchen staring at a half-finished grocery list, and suddenly realized he didn't even know where Laura usually shopped for certain things or how she managed the weekly routine so efficiently. It was like discovering that a building he had trusted for years had been quietly supported by beings he never knew existed. Days turned into weeks, and the house never quite felt the same. Jake forgot small tasks his mother used to remind him about. Family phone calls stopped happening. Even holidays approached with a sense of uncertainty, because Laura had always been the one organizing everything from decorations to invitations. Michael began to see the truth with growing clarity. Laura had not simply been part of their life. She had been the quiet force holding everything together. One Saturday afternoon, Michael sat alone on the front. The sky turned shades of orange and purple the way it often did during Colorado sunsets. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to think honestly about the life Laura had built around their family. She never asked for praise. She never demanded recognition. She simply carried the responsibility of keeping everyone connected and cared for. And somehow Michael had overlooked that strength because it had always been there. The realization felt both humbling and painful. He wondered how many times Laura had done something kind or thoughtful without anyone truly noticing. He wondered how many quiet sacrifices she had made while the rest of the family focused on their own busy lives. That evening, Michael picked up his phone and called Laura in Oregon. When she answered, he heard the sound of ocean waves in the background where she had been walking along the coast with her sister. Her voice sounded relaxed in a way he had not heard in years. Michael told her he hoped she was enjoying the trip and that everything at home was fine, though he admitted with a small laugh that he was busy years. Laura responded with the same gentle warmth she always carried, telling him she was glad he called and that sometimes stepping away helps people see things more clearly. After they hung up, Michael sat quietly on the porch for a long time. The neighborhood looked the same as it always had. Kids riding bicycles down the street, porch lights flickering on as evening settled in. But inside Michael, something had shifted. He finally understood a lesson that had been waiting in front of him for 2 decades. The most important people in our lives are often the ones whose efforts blend so seamlessly into everyday routines that we forget to recognize them. And sometimes it takes their absence for us to see the quiet strength they bring into the world. Weeks later, when Laura returned home, the house felt warmer almost instantly. The smell of coffee returned in the mornings. The calendar filled with neat reminders again. Family conversations slowly came back to life. But this time Michael noticed every detail. He noticed the early mornings she sent to relatives. He noticed the calm patience she showed whenever someone in the house felt overwhelmed. And for the first time since the day they married, he thanked her not just with words, but with genuine understanding. Because Michael Turner had finally learned something that many people discover too late. The people we overlook are often the ones quietly holding our lives together. And the greatest mistake we can make is waiting until they are gone to realize how much they truly matter. If this story reminds you of someone in your life who quietly keeps things running while asking for nothing in return, take a moment today to thank them, because the quiet heroes of our everyday lives deserve to be seen while they are